Yo, yo, yo. It's your girl Rose Gold, and you are tuned in for another episode of Heartbreak Hill Podcast. Today I have a very, very, very special gentleman who is joining us today. He goes by the name of DJ Vodicka. DJ Vodicka is a former correctional officer at the infamous Salinas Valley Prison. He wrote the book The Green Wall, in reference to the gang that was formed amongst correctional officers at the level 4 prison, Salinas Valley. We're going to go ahead and jump right on into interviewing him. Thank you so much, DJ, for being here with us. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Rose. Thanks for letting me come on to share this incredible true story with you and all your followers.
Yes, for sure. We are so excited to have you. For you, those of you who are just tuning in with us, I have been corresponding with DJ here, getting him on the show. Our original air date, unfortunately, had some technical difficulties. So by his kindness, he is back again on our time to go ahead and help us and understand this transformational, powerful story. So DJ, why don't we just go ahead and dive right in? Tell me, it's 1980s era, you're in Los Angeles, California, and you set off on the career to be a correctional officer. Tell me how that came about to be.
Well, I was in the United States Army in 1983 to 1987, and I was about ready to get out of the Army, and my father sent me an application for the California Department of Corrections, who was hiring correctional officers for new prisons that were being opened. Mm-hmm. And I applied, and when I got home, I applied and ended up testing for the Department of Corrections, and 6 months later, I'm in the academy in California, called Academy, for 6 weeks. Then my first assignment that I landed in 1988 was the infamous Corcoran State Prison, who housed the famous gang members and also Charles Manson. Shortly after that, I stayed there for about 4 years, and then I ended up going to another prison in the lower desert called CALIFORINIA State Prison in 1992. Which I was a part of an elite unit called the Investigative Service Unit, or the Goon Squad. Mm-hmm. We solved all the horrific crimes with inmates and internal affairs with against staff. I stayed there for about 2 years, and then I met a young lady down there, and we left there to head up to Northern California to another infamous big prison in the state of California called Pelican Bay State Prison.
Yes.
1994. I ended up going up there, and again, I was on the same unit as an ISU officer, as the evidence officer. Stayed up there for about 2 years, and then shortly after that, a new prison came online. In March of 1996, I transferred to the Salinas Valley State Prison and opened that prison up. And I, once again, went right into the ISU unit and set that unit up, and that's what happened. That's actually where the Green Wall actually occurred.
Gotcha. So just to kind of give a summary here. So started that career kind of late 80s there. You had the opportunity to be in some of the most infamous prison systems or prison facilities in California, Pelican Bay being one. And if you've ever seen Training Day, Denzel Washington references that prison a whole lot. And you were around some very violent, infamous people. Before we go ahead and get started about your stay at Salinas Valley, which is where the Green Wall was formed and began and things of that nature, being an investigative service unit officer, you, like you said, were responsible for solving crimes or investigating crimes that took place inside the prison walls, correct?
That's correct.
And from the many prisons that you've been to, what is the most common crime that you see being reported or that you had to investigate during your time? What is the most common crime that you would see?
A lot of drug smuggling from the outside coming inside the prison. A lot of hits on inmates, stabbings, investigating riots and crime scenes. Some homicides, some suicides. Some staff coming in with cell phones and other contraband.
For sure. No, definitely. And as a person, because I've talked to you now numerous times. I know you're a very nice guy, very calm, cool, relaxed guy. What kind of mindset did you have to get in every day to be able to be mentally strong enough to be around some of the nation's most dangerous people and still be able to do your job? I think we. Okay, can you hear me okay now? Can you hear me okay?
We're losing audio, Rose. I can't hear you.
Okay, give me just a second. We'll go ahead and clear that up. Give me just a moment here.
A bad connection.
Yeah, I keep getting the same error. Let's see if we could go ahead and get another connection here. Give me 1 second. All right. All right.
No, bad connection.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you great now.
Perfect. We will not let audio disconnections intervene with this interview. Amen?
Amen.
So what I was saying, my question I was asking you is that I've talked to you a few times now, and you're a very nice guy, very laid back, respectable, cool mannerism guy. What mindset did you have to get into every day to enter into some of the most dangerous prisons in the nation? How did you do that?
Well, every morning when I got up and took a shower, put my uniform on, put my boots on, I looked myself in the mirror and say, you know what, God, just make sure I get home safe when I go to work and do my 8-hour, 16-hour shift. Because once you enter inside the prison system, you go through the 2 gates and into the yards. You don't know if you're going to come home alive or you're going to come home injured or what. But, you know, I mean, the whole thing is, it's all about respect. I respect the convicts and incarcerated inmates. I showed them respect. They gave me the respect back. In
Absolutely.
The 16 years I was in, Rose, I was only assaulted one time. I was gassed by an inmate that wasn't all there. But majority of the time, the convicts and inmates would, I talked to them, never talk personal business or information, but I showed them that respect, and I got a lot of respect back.
Exactly. And because you showed them that type of respect, like you said, you had an incident once where there was an assault being gassed, but you never really had inmates physically attack you or physically send out hits on you or anything like what we're getting ready to talk about happened to you by your your former co-workers, correct?
Well, only until my last prison I worked at, and we'll talk about that. I think there was a hit on me because I gave up the green wall and exposed the corruption at Salinas Valley.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. That was the prison you had transferred to. Yes, we definitely will get into that for sure. So, okay, you are doing your things. It's late 80s. You're in California. You are cruising as your career as a correctional officer. And then there's this new prison that opens up. Salinas Valley opens up. You're one of the new veteran officers on the scene. At that time, you're pretty seasoned. You had been at a few prisons. Brand new prison. You guys are getting it ready. The busload of new inmates arrive and they come in and you guys are flowing. When did you start to notice that there was something going on differently behind these walls than you had experienced as a correctional officer at other prisons?
Well, there were certain correctional officers that were at the institution. They had their little cliques or their little gangs, or not gangs, but little groups, and they didn't very well like you. They would invite you in and all that, and it just felt weird because the other prisons I worked for, we had that real strong morale, camaraderie, and all that. And it just felt a little different, you know. And that was in 1996, and then in 1998 when I left the ISU to go back to the main line, and then the Thanksgiving riot happened in 1998. That's when the Green Wall, these guys that I recognized earlier in my career at the prison, they just acted a little differently, and that's when the Green Wall formed.
Gotcha. So tell me about the riot. What happened? It was a Thanksgiving Day, is that right?
Yeah, it happened in November of 1998 at one of the violent yards at the prison, which is D Yard. It was one of the most violent yards. Southern Hispanic inmates attacked staff mid-morning when they got led out to the yard. Staff didn't see it coming and attacked staff. Shortly after that, there were several officers injured. Several officers went to the outside hospital. Some inmates went to the outside hospital, but and then shortly after that, I was told to photograph the inmates by the lieutenant of the yard, Greg Lewis, who I worked for at Pelican Bay. He said, "Hey, go get the evidence camera and start photographing everything on this yard." I said, "No problem, I will." And shortly after that, I started photographing the inmates in restraints before they got escorted back to the housing unit. And that's when the officers didn't like that. They called me an inmate lover. "Who are you ratting on now? Are you with these guys?" I just told them, "You guys do your job, I'll do my job."
And you were receiving this harassment for following protocol. There was just a riot that took place, and you, as part of the ISU, the investigative unit, you have to take pictures of the people that are involved. And because you were doing that, taking pictures of them, of the inmates, making sure that they were intact, you were being harassed, calling an inmate lover, things of that nature.
That's correct. I mean, I was labeled, to their side. They thought I was, on the inmate side, because these officers were going to do some physical damage to these inmates, and I just wanted to make sure I took pictures of these guys with no injuries or small injuries on them before they got escorted back to their cells, at which time they were physically abused by these members of the Green Wall, and their property was destroyed. That launched a huge investigations from Sacramento.
Wow. And so, okay, the riot happens. You photograph the inmates. You start to get pushed back from the guards, the other guards that are there. They're starting to see that you are obviously not like them. After that riot incident, when did you see more of the Green Wall Gang, and how did you know what it was called? How did you know what exactly it was?
Well, I saw some officers after the Thanksgiving riot that day. Certain officers who were part of the Green Wall were wearing turkey pins on their jumpsuits, which they're not allowed to do that.
Okay.
To identify that riot, that they were part of that riot. And shortly after that, they were marking different areas with gang graffiti, like they called themselves the 723 or the GW. The seventh letter of the alphabet is G, 23rd is W. That's what they put. But some of them actually put tattoos on their body to 723 GW. And they were, like I said, tagging different areas of the prison, who they are. And shortly after that, it just started booming. I mean, started rising with recruits coming in. And after that, about 2001, beginning of 2001, when I worked the vehicle Sallyport down in the institution, where vehicles come into the prison, that's the only way in, and inmates from the level 1 yard come up. Well, this one level 1 inmate was coming up, and he was badly beaten up, and hey, Vodicka, look what happened to me. These guys on the Green Wall came down and beat me up last night for no reason. And I just shook my head. I said, "This is crazy." And
wow.
At the time, I got a hold of some people, let them know what's going on, and shortly after that, Lieutenant Lewis, who was back, he was on the ISU unit as an IA lieutenant. He was investigating his own people in the Green Wall, and wanted to know my knowledge. And he said, "Hey, I need you to go up and see the warden. He wants to know what's going on in his prison." I said, "Okay." So they came down and relieved me from the vehicle Sallyport. An officer did. I went up and saw the warden. The warden said, "Hey, I need to know everything what's going on at this prison. These guys who call themselves the Green Wall." I said, "Sir, I got knowledge of them. I know who they are.
Right.
I need you to write a report." So, "Sir, I don't work with these guys. I work with you guys every day." So, "I need you to write a report and have it on my desk by Monday," and that's a direct order. I said, "Okay." I went home and typed up a 2-page report, stamped it confidential, turned it into them on Monday, and 2 months later, I get these guys on the Green Wall, part of the Green Wall, about my size. I'm 6'5", about 320. These guys are my size.
Sure.
They came down to where I work and quoted verbatim out of my memorandum what I said. So the warden threw me under the bus.
So at that point, so you're seeing this stuff happen by the Green Wall Gang, which is a gang of correctional officers. You go to the warden by command of your lieutenant. You write the report for the warden. And the warden then takes that report and shares it with the exact same guys who you name in the report as being part of this Green Wall Gang.
That's correct.
And they approach you.
They approach you. I lose it. I mean, when they left the Sallyport, I started throwing trash cans and screaming on top of my lungs, and they basically told me, "You're a dead man walking. I mean, you're through. You're done." I'm like, "This is crazy." The warden at the prison who I trusted threw me under the bus.
Exactly.
And he would later on in the book, when you read the book, he behind the whole ordeal.
Exactly.
The warden told these guys, these officers, the part of the Green Wall, I don't want these inmates taking over our prison. You go put fear and intimidation in these inmates, and I will back you 100%. So
Right.
They're not going to take over my prison.
And when I read your book, I seen that there's a section in there where you describe exactly that. You describe the mindset behind the formation of the gang was, quote unquote, to keep the prison in line. But as I read more, that quickly got out of control. Very quickly became to where these guards were abusing inmates. They were destroying their property. They were trumping up false citations and reports, things of that nature from what I read. Up until the point where you literally had to transfer out of Salinas Valley. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, after I had the report, I got those guys came down and threw me under the bus and quoted stuff out of my memorandum. That same night, Lieutenant Lewis contacted the OIG in Sacramento, and they called me and they said, "Hey, we want to meet with you. We want to meet with you." So they met with me at the location near my home, and I sat there and talked to them for about 3 hours, and they had me on tape recorder and all that. And then shortly after that, a couple weeks later, I went back to work because I didn't have a lot of sick time. When I was in the vehicle Sallyport, I wasn't around inmates. I was isolated.
Okay, cool. So you felt okay going back after a few weeks.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to work. And shortly after that, about a week later, these guys from the OIG, straight for the governor, Schwartz, they came to the prison in their cars, 5 or 6 cars deep, came into my Sallyport, checked their weapons, went inside, went to the ISU, had all the officers step out, took evidence, computers, everything out of that area that were part of their investigation. They went up to the warden's office and told the warden to step out of his office, and they went and got files and everything out of there. And shortly after that, the phone was ringing. That they were calling, "You're a dead man, rat." They would identify themselves on the phone. And shortly after that, I called my personal friend Joe Reynoso and told him what was going on. He said, "Hey, no, we need to get you out of there." They called Richard Ramsdale, who was the OIG at the time, and they got me out of there. They moved me overnight to another prison, which is unheard of in the Department of Corrections.
Exactly.
And they did. They moved me. I was there on a Friday, and Monday morning I had to report to another prison 6 hours away.
Wow. So just that quickly. So you leave Salinas Valley the same day the Green Wall approaches you. You then get approached by the people in Sacramento who more or less run the prison system. We'll just say a part of the investigative unit that runs the prison. They take you out in the middle of nowhere, quote unquote, and they record your statement. They get everything from you. You just flood it all out. You go back to work after that. And when you go back to work after a few weeks of that, you take sick time off, you go back to Salinas. And when you go back to Salinas, another organization that's part of the same investigative prison OIG team, they come in and they flood Salinas Valley. They confiscate files, computers, even they flood in on the warden. After they do that sweep, you are then reporting to another prison by Monday morning.
Valley State Prison.
And from there, what happens while you're at Pleasant Valley?
When I first got there, the captain of custody captain knew me from with my days working at Court State Prison. His name was Brian Williams, who's now deceased. He's no longer with us. He took me under his wing and he said, "Hey, you want to work part of the ISU?" I said, "No, I don't want to go back in the ISU. No, I don't
right.
want to be part of ISU."
You had enough.
No, I said my seniority was like. Out of 600 officers, I was number 3. So I had great seniority. So where do you want to go? Pick your job. I said, "Well, I just want to be a yard officer." Okay, I got D yard open. You want it? I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take it." So I went down to the yard, and then about 2 months later, Captain Williams got transferred down there as a captain, and he really took me under his wing. I helped him out on investigations and all that. And shortly after that, a few months down the line, 6, 7 months down the line, I responded to a housing alarm on the yard, and when we do, we all run to that building. All officers run to the building. I was running across the yard. I entered the little Sallyport area. As I was running through the Sallyport, the gunner upstairs said, "Hey, Vodicka, stop, don't enter it. One of the inmates were going to take me out. I was going to be set up." And the other officers who were running with me stopped at the front door. They didn't come in, so I knew I was going to get set up for something seriously happening.
Right.
That was my last day at the prison.
For sure, I bet it was. And so just to keep my listeners up to followers with some of the terms. So when you're a yard officer, your job is to respond to any sort of commotion that happens on the wall. And if on the yard, excuse me. And if commotion happens on the yard, you get a call that you have to drop everything and run to. And usually you have backup that run with you. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And you ran, and you also mentioned the area where you got the call to is by a Sally Port. Now, for those of you that don't know, a Sally Port is more or less where at a prison where cars pull in and out. Is that correct?
No, the Sally Port is on the building door. It's like a rotunda, like a rotunda, like a long hallway.
Like a hallway. Gotcha.
Enter into the room. Right.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry about that. So it's essentially to get to or to respond to the call that you had gotten, you had to go through pretty much a hallway to get to the area. And the gunner or the people who stand at the towers with the live and bullet rounds, they can see everything. So as you're going to respond to the call, one of the people in the tower, they stop you and they say, "Hey, Vodicka, don't go in there."
Correct. Right. When I was in the rotunda, I actually entered the building in the little rotunda area before I go through another door to the day room floor. He stopped me before I got to that door.
And when you found out there was someone going to be waiting from you, according to the book, there was an inmate waiting. What went through your mind when you found out you were this close to being hit, more or less, by an inmate, being set up by your same coworkers who were supposed to protect you? How did you feel? What went through your mind?
That these guys could never be trusted again.
Mm-hmm.
And that they were going to take me out because they knew I had a lot of knowledge and information exposing this group of Greenwald in another prison. They wanted to take me out, or severely injure me, or make sure I won't talk.
That was their hope, was to silence you, and despite that, you still decided to move forward.
That's correct. After that day, I walked up to the warden's office. I saw the chief deputy working there. I ended up going straight into the chief deputy warden's office, bypassed the secretary, and I went right into him. I said, "You set me up. You knew what was going on here. You didn't protect me." He said, "Well, I can't protect you all the time." I said, "I'll see you in court one day. I'll see you in court, Mr. Ralphie." I walked out. My lawyer, who I had at the time, told me, "You're done. You're not working."
Wow. So that was your last day at Pleasant Valley. After they were going to set you up with an inmate, that was your last day at Pleasant Valley. You never went back there. What happens next?
Well, after that, I pursued a lawsuit against the Department of Corrections, a civil lawsuit for whistleblowing and retaliation, everything. Because I went up to my own union, Rose. I asked for help through my union. My own union legal team said, "Hey, send me all the documentation you have, what's going on with you and all that." And I did. I sent it because that's who I work for.
Exactly.
The Department of Corrections and the CCPA. And the one day when the CCPA president was at that prison in Pleasant Valley, I approached him. I said, "Hey, Mike, I'm Officer Vodicka." Hey, he looked at me and he looked at my nameplate. He goes, "Oh, you're Officer Vodicka? We've been advised not to talk to you," and he walked away from me.
You're a union rep.
My own chapter president, who oversees 30,000 officers, said, "We're not allowed to talk to you." He walked away from me.
And up until this point, you had paid your union dues for over 16 years.
Correct.
Wow. Uh-oh, you went out just a little bit there. Say it one more time for me. You went out just a little bit there. I think it's the connection thing again. Give it just a second here. Small connection there. Can you hear me now? I can hear you now. Okay, perfect. You had paid union dues for almost 16 years. And this was the response that you had gotten from the people that were supposed to protect you. So you go to them, they're advised not to talk to you, which I'm sure was devastating. And when the trial begins, when you start to give your dispositions in court, because you filed the lawsuit, and there's, the book goes into a lot of details about this, but due to time, I just really want to get to the seriousness of this. you begin to do your testimonies, if you will. And during that time, and there's pictures in the book, you are taken off the grid. You are literally having to be hid. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, in 2004, I was invited to a Senate hearings by Jackie Spear, who was a senator in San Francisco and Columbia Borough Senator of LA. They were doing a government oversight hearing against the Department of Corrections. They were tired of hearing all the corruption of the code of silence in the prison system in California. So they subpoenaed me up for the hearing, and I went up to that hearing that day. And before I went to the hearing, my story hit the front page of the LA Times, and it went Associated Press all through the United States. And I testified in that 2-hour Senate hearing up there. Where was my right hand, full packed house, escorted in by the California Highway Patrol, flanked, them, and I had my vest on. Joe Renoso, my attorney, and we're walking up the big stairs at the state capitol, and in a room, when they opened the huge doors, I mean, they all turned around and looked at me, and they knew I was coming in to talk about the Green Wall and expose the corruption in the Department of Corrections. Shortly after that, they moved me off the grid into hiding for 6 months, and until everything started dying down, and I went into my civil proceedings against the Department of Corrections.
That's exactly right. And I don't want to go in too deep because I really want people to check out your book to figure out what exactly happened when you took on the entire correctional facilities of California. That entire department had to do with these proceedings. And it was just an awesome and amazing thing. And I really want to get, with our last few minutes, I want to get into kind of, you were in the Army, so the discipline is there. You we're going to, you've been a man of principle, is from what I can gather. You've always been that way. But what was your push? What was your courage driver to expose what was happening? Was it your faith? I know that you and your father are really close, according to the book. What was it that pushed you, that gave you that courage to take on such a big system like the correctional facilities of California, which is the biggest in the country? What gave you that?
Told us, always tell the truth, do the right thing, and all that. And then when I went to the academy and I graduated that academy, and I was so proud when my mom pinned the badge on my chest. And I took an oath, and I rose to my right hand, and I took an oath. I took an oath to protect and serve. And right. I did not take an oath to adhere to the code of silence. Definitely against the code of silence. I don't believe in it, and I mean, this is the way people are. And then shortly after that. Before my father passed away, one of his last words was to write this book, share it with the world, let everybody know what they did to you in the Department of Corrections. And everybody needs to know what happens behind the prison walls, because the media doesn't know what's going on. The public doesn't know what's going on. So now you're here firsthand from a correctional officer who saw everything.
Exactly. And it's such a powerful thing. And I know that right now, your book is not allowed in correctional facilities in California, but that's okay because your story, your book is actually getting ready to be a featured film. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's in development for that. And right now it's a very possibility for an upcoming documentary about my story. And the person that I'm gonna put it out there was the person who was interested in my story. He just came out with you really might want to Google this later in your viewers. It's called The Prison Within.
Okay.
This producing company, and it won a lot of documentary awards for at the Telluride and everything else. It's about these people went into San Quentin State Prison and interviewed inmates, and it's a great story. It's called The Prison Within.
Gotcha.
Great story, and these people like my story, and now let's see what's going to happen with that. But one of the biggest things that really touches me is I have a little boy. He was 5 years old at the time. I took him to a mid-state fair down in California when I was visiting with my mom and dad, because they love my little boy. That was their first grandson. And my son wanted to go to a fair that night. I took him to a fair that night. We had a great time, and as I was coming out of the fair, I was approached by a sergeant who worked at the prison, who was part of the Green Wall. He ran up on me and said, "Vodicka, drop the case, let it go. You're a rat already." And my little boy saw that. And to this day, now he's starting to remember what happened.
Wow.
5-year-old boy seeing this, crying, "Daddy, let's go." And it's tough. And then the other big part of it is, I have all the evidence that supports the book. I have everything in that book.
Yes, you do.
Nonfiction book.
Yes.
There's names in the book. There's evidence in the book. And here's the book right here. This is just a book called The Green Wall.
Yes. Amazing, excellent read. It's an amazing read. Yes, it is. It is very powerful. It's amazing. With just under 3 minutes left, DJ, I want to thank you so much. That was a horrific event that your son had to experience. But I know for a fact he is proud to call you his father. You are a true hero. As a person who has had experience with the correctional system, I have family who is currently in the correctional system. It is not an easy thing, and to have people like you that really and genuinely care is a blessing. If you want to go ahead and purchase DJ's book, check him out. You can go ahead on Amazon. You can also go to Barnes & Noble. There's also a few places you can go. He is all over social media. You can definitely look him up under The Green Wall. And this is something that will go on for generations and generations. Mr. Vodicka, do you have anything else to say to the listeners before we let you go?
We just need to treat everybody, all lives matter. We need to treat everybody with respect, especially incarcerated. They're humans, they're not just some number. They need to be treated with respect. You get that respect back, you get it back from them. But, the minute you demeanor them and talk down to them, then you're going to expect something from them.
Simple as that. It's just that simple. Listen, DJ, you could have been anywhere in the world, honey, but you decided to be here with me. I am so thankful, so grateful for your patience, for your kindness, for your candor, for just being able to join with us today. I know for a fact that you have touched many of people. Do not hesitate, people. Go and get that book. Hold it up for me one more time, DJ. The Green Wall. It is a phenomenal, excellent book. I've already read it. You cannot miss out. You guys be sure to continue to share love and show light. Remember, it's all love and no judgment. Thank you again, DJ. I hope to talk to you soon.
You too, Rose. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.